you have this very short time period to get people to sign up. And so because you have this very short time period, like if your ads don't work right away, you are scrambling. Welcome to the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast, where being a badass has less to do with what you wear and what music you listen to, and everything to do with whether you've got the thriving online business of your dreams. I'm your renegade thinking Harvard Law grad turned online entrepreneur host, Bobby Klink. In my years building my thriving business, the most important lesson I've learned is that being a badass online marketer isn't about secret strategies or ninja tactics. It's about doing the basic stuff right and showing the F up. So each week here on the show, you'll get clear, easy to execute guidance on how to build your online business and a swift kick in the ass or two to make sure you're getting it done. Hey there, welcome to episode 131 of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klink, and today's episode is about one of my favorite topics. It's about something I've talked a lot about and that kind of sets me apart from most of the other entrepreneurs in the space. Today, we're going to be talking about what I kind of call my non-launch launch method. Really what it is an email-only launch, but I call it the non-launch launch, and I want to talk about it. It's something that really drove my business forward last year, and so I wanted to share the kind of method and madness with you so that you maybe can think about whether it will work for your business and whether it's a good way for you to go forward and maybe try it out as kind of something that's a bit different and a bit easier to execute than most of the launch methods. But before we dive in, this episode is brought to you by my February workshop. My February workshop is coming up this Friday. It will be on February 7th. And it's an workshop that is all about writing effective promo emails and promo email sequences. So we're going to be talking about things like how to invite people to an event if you're doing a webinar or a video series, how to get them to show up, and then how to write an effective series of emails after the fact, both for the people who come to the work or your webinar or come to whatever it is that your promo event is, but also for the other people on your list. And so we'll be kind of talking about a lot of the same ideas will be here. Now, people who show up are going to get the workshop. They're also going to get a lot of swipe. I'm going to have kind of examples of the emails that I have sent in all of those different contexts. So you will get your hands on an invite sequence, a show up sequence, a post-webinar sequence, a sales kind of a booster sequence that's just for people who didn't attend. And then also you're going to get my entire kind of non-launch launch email sequence that I've used. So you'll get a ton of different promo emails that maybe can inspire you on how to write a great promo sequence. So if you'd like to attend, I would love to have you. You can find out more by heading to bobbyklink.com /February 2020 workshop. Again, bobbyklink.com /February 2020 workshop. So now with that, I want to dive into today's episode. And today's episode, again, is about my non-launch launch formula. And I'm going to give you a bit of background to give you an idea of how I came upon this idea of doing this, because it wasn't some grand scheme that I had, a grand idea that I had. What happened was about a year ago, so January of 2019, I did a traditional launch of my template library. So this was back when it was only open at certain times. And so I did a traditional webinar launch. And, I got good results. I mean, I had a decent launch, but we saw a lot of things were, kind of more expensive than I'd wanted on getting people to a webinar and some other things. And then I went to my first mastermind retreat with kind of the James Wedmore's Inner Circle Mastermind and was kind of going over it with my peers. And my question was, how do I improve this next time? And they gave me some candid, hard feedback of, is this really the way you should be doing it? And they were pressing me at the time, and many of them pointed out, hey, I need your stuff, but guess what? I am not going to attend a webinar about the legal stuff. And so they kind of got me thinking, and I started going one way and thinking, oh, well, maybe I should, do a different kind of webinar, a more fun marketing email, and then kind of pivot to the legal stuff at the end. And that's what I was thinking at the time. But then my law firm got in the way. And by that, I mean that they end up, so my law firm started getting busy. And so it became apparent to me that I was not going to be able to do another webinar launch like I had intended and like was my plan. And so I was talking to some of my peers again and trying to figure out what to do. And they said, and I mentioned I had a wait list, and they said, well, why don't you just, maybe do a low impact, email your wait list and see if they're interested. And so I said, okay. And so I decided to do that. But then I said, why am I just going to email the wait list? Why not just go ahead and send emails out to my entire list? And then that's kind of what I decided. And that's kind of where the genesis came from. So I did a launch using my non-launch launch formula in March. Then I think I did one in June or July. I don't remember which. And then one more during the year. And so each one of them had success. And the central idea behind the non-launch launch is this. The idea is that many of us are making this marketing stuff way too complicated. Now, what happens is we learn these cool strategies, these cool tactics from people, like a webinar or a video series or a challenge or, something that James jokes. He calls it a chaunch. It's a mix between a challenge and a traditional launch. And so we learn all of these cool ideas and we feel like, hey, that's got to be what we want to do. And part of it is like we feel like everyone else is doing it, so we should do it. But also part of it is we feel like, well, we learned this cool stuff. I want to try it, right? I want to be part of the cool kids who are doing launches. I want to be doing this stuff. And, we also hear about it all that way. And so we're thinking we've got to go down that route. And so that's what a lot of us do. And sometimes we're doing it in spite of ourselves, right? We're doing it and putting an impediment in the way of people who are already ready to buy and don't need any kind of launch vehicle to convince them. And what I'm talking about here is if you've listened to me for any length of time, you know that I am a big proponent of what I call my fans framework. It's kind of the basis for my Fans First Society. And it's the concept that we should kind of find our people, attract them, nurture them. And only at that point do we serve them by selling them something and then over delivering within what we deliver. Well, if you think about it, if you take that model and you decide that you're not really going to be launching to cold traffic anyway, and I'll get to that in a second, if you're only really going to be talking to your existing audience, guess what? Your existing audience, if you have done a good job of nurturing them, if you've done a good job of really kind of talking up what your product is, how you can help them, and all of those things, then you don't have to worry about doing a launch. Because guess what? You're going to have people who go, can I buy your stuff? I really want to buy your stuff. When's it going to be open? Can I buy your stuff? That literally was happening to me. That was happening to me last year when the template library was only available at certain times. I would get emails saying, hey, when is it going to be open again? I really want to get it. And people literally were saying, I'm waiting to get the legal stuff because I want to get your template library. And so I want, when is it going to be open? When can I buy? And so that's the kind of thing, if you think about it, those people don't need me to give them a complicated sale. They're ready to go. If you're doing the work of really attracting the right people and nurturing them the right way, they will be motivated. And if that's the case, maybe, why do anything else? So that was kind of the idea and the genesis. But the other idea, and this is where I am very different from a lot of online entrepreneurs, is I don't like the idea of spending a lot of money on ads during a launch. And the reason why is that ads during a launch are the most expensive. Trying to get someone cold, not your warm audience, but trying to get someone who doesn't yet know you to sign up for a webinar, for a challenge, for a 3-part video series, for any kind of traditional launch, that is going to be the most expensive way to bring them into your world. And not only is that going to be the most expensive way to bring them into your world, you're going to bring them into your world, they're going to be cold, and then you're going to try to convert them over a very short period of time from cold to buying a product. And look, if it's a $97 product, if you have a $1 trial for a membership, that's fine and that's easy. But if you're asking someone to commit to $500, $1,000, $2,000, like in the entrepreneurship space, or if you serve consumers, it might even be a smaller number. That is a big lift to get someone from cold, doesn't know who you are, to sign up, to attend, and then to buy in that short order. Now, you can do it if you get very, very good at messaging and kind of marketing and all of those things. You can do it, but it's hard. But more importantly, if you actually move the money that you would have spent on launch ads and instead say, I'm going to use that money to simply get people on my list year round and nurture the living crap out of them and turn them from cold leads into raving fans in a period when I'm not trying to sell them anything, my belief is you will have a much better result. Now, part of the problem is, candidly, that you don't have the money come back immediately. And I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs like the launch method, because you put all of your money out during the launch for your Facebook ads, and it's not immediate, but within a couple of weeks, hopefully, you've gotten the money back because people are buying. And so it makes it seem like less of a risk. But my view is you're going to get much better results by talking to your warm audience. And when you look at the people who are doing some of the big, huge launches in the kind of space, in our space at least, what you'll find is that a lot of them are largely launching to their warm audience or to an audience brought in by affiliates where they're borrowing other people's warm audiences. So in other words, most of their money is not coming in from, Facebook ads to cold leads to be brought into their funnel. And that is something that I've seen over and over again when I've seen kind of behind the scenes of a lot of these big launches. And so I said, okay, why don't we shift to doing that? And again, some of those people, they still do a launch, but I know some of my friends and peers who have these big, huge launches, candidly, they have a lot of people who are like, yeah, well, I'm signing up for the webinar, but that's just because I just want to buy, and I know that's what I have to do to buy. They're not signing up for the webinar because they need to go to a webinar or go to a product launch formula kind of 3-part video series to actually get things, like to get convinced to buy. They're doing it simply because that's what they need to buy. And so a lot of my friends, if you look at most people's launches, the first day is huge. And for some of that, it is because the webinar or the product launch formula, whatever it is, that's when, they've kind of made the big pitch. But a lot of that is because there's just pent up demand of people ready to buy. And as soon as you open the door, they say, okay, here's my credit card, let's do it. And then the other big spikes tend to come on the last day and days of bonuses. And so you can do all of that without having to do a traditional launch. And you can do it without the risk of putting out thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of ads in a launch where it's high risk, where you have very limited time period. So that's part of the other problem with ads during a launch is you have this very short time period to get people to sign up. And so because you have this very short time period, if your ads don't work right away, you are scrambling. and you will be in a tough spot, and you're going to be feeling horrible, and you're going to be stressed, and you're going to feel like the world is coming down around you. Because what do you do when, you're expecting, let's say, $10 leads into a webinar, and you're having to pay $50 for a lead? Or you have some ads that just aren't even performing at all. Or worse yet, you try to spin them up. And these days, Facebook can be a real pain, and it will not approve your ads, or it might disable your ad account, or it might do all of these crazy things to you. And when you do a traditional launch, you are putting all of your money, kind of all of your hopes into that. And my view is, I don't need that pressure in my life. Now, I love doing webinars. That's the funny thing. I love actually getting on a webinar and doing it. It is tons of fun. That's kind of why I love doing these workshops, because I get to kind of have all the fun of a webinar. Number one, without any kind of pressure, and also without having to sell anything, because I don't sell anything on my monthly workshop. So I get to just do all of the fun part without the stuff that puts pressure, etc. But that, like I said, is the idea behind the non-launch launch. So I want to talk for a second now about who is a non-launch launch ready or right for, because it's not right for everyone. So the first thing I'm going to say is, number one, you've got to have a warm audience. If you don't have a warm audience who you have been nurturing, you're not going to be able to succeed doing a non-launch launch, because who are you going to send your emails to? And who's going to open them and who's going to respond to them? So you have to have that. But if you follow me, if you listen to this, at the end of anything, quite honestly, you should know by now that I believe everybody should have a warm audience already, because, that's important to your business no matter what. So even if you're going to do a traditional launch, you should be cultivating a warm audience. But to do a non-launch launch, you have to, right? Because you're not going to be able to convert cold people normally. Number one, I don't even know what you would bring them into, because there's no event. It's just emails. And so you couldn't really have much success converting a cold audience with that. So you have to have a warm audience. You have to have been cultivating them. And by cultivating them, I mean the stuff I talk about all the time about sending them the emails to connect with you so they know, like, and trust you. All of that stuff, yes. But you also need to be seeding things. You need to be talking about your product in your content, in the emails that you talk about when you're not selling it, where you just talk about it. And you say, for example, you notice on this podcast, I mention the Online Genius template library quite a bit. I mention the Fans First Society quite a bit. So I'm mentioning my products so people in my audience naturally kind of get used to hearing about those things. They know they're out there. They're aware of them. So subconsciously, it's kind of getting them ready to potentially buy. Now, not everybody's going to buy, and that's fine. And that's not the only reason I do it. I do it because obviously I use my products as an example of what I'm doing and of how I've applied the lessons that I try to offer to you and teach you here. But it helps to seed your product. So that is part of it too. You need to be cultivating them, et cetera. Because I will tell you, doing launches, oftentimes people need to go through multiple launches before they buy. I can tell you the first time I did, the first time I launched my template library, I did an email only launch, but it was before I'd done anything else. It was just let me just get it out there and see what happens. And, I had fine results, but it was not huge. I don't remember what I made. It was like 20 something thousand or maybe $30,000. Somewhere in that ballpark on that first launch. And again, that was fun. Like I said, I'm not going to complain about a $20,000 launch, especially back then. But it was the first time that I was using that messaging, that I was talking about that particular product, because I had repackaged and changed things. And so oftentimes it's going to take people multiple times of hearing about your product and even going through your launch sequences to really get warmed up and get ready to buy. So expect that and understand. So you need to have a warm audience. You need to have been cultivating them. And oftentimes I think it will be the case that a non-launch launch, kind of this email only launch, will work better the second time, the third time, and the fourth time. So you can expect that as well. Now, the other piece though is you need to have a no-brainer offer. Now, we should all have a no-brainer offer, but what I would say is if you're not going to do the videos, the kind of whether it's a webinar or sales, kind of a 3-part video series with the sales video at the end, if you're not going to do that kind of thing, if you're going to rely primarily upon email with a little bit of other stuff, you need to have an offer that someone can just look at and say, well, yeah, duh, of course I want that. And again, not everyone's going to say that, but you need it to be that kind of offer where really their only question is now the right time for me? And do I have the money, or can I find the money for this purchase now? Those need to really be the only questions. And so you need to have a product that really nails it and really is kind of the perfect offer for your community. And that was one of the things that my mastermind group really kind of told me was, they said, like, look, your template library, you're giving people, I think at the time it was 18 templates. Now it's up to 20, I think. But I was giving them 17 or 18 legal templates for $1,000. They were just saying, look, that is a no-brainer offer. What you really need to do is just say, hey, do you want this? And people will say yes. And so that's what you need to be thinking. Is your offer that much of a where you can just say, hey, here's my thing. Do you want it? And they're likely to say, well, yes, I do. And then again, the only question is, can they afford it? And is now the right time for them to make that investment? So that's the kind of offer you need to have. Now, also, if it just so happens that your offer is one where people really, if it's not a course, for example, like mine, where it's templates and people really aren't going to want to attend a webinar or a video series or something else about it, then it's a no-brainer that you should be doing the no launch because that's going to be, much better. Again, so ask yourself this: if doing some kind of launch vehicle is really just putting an impediment in the way that will actually prevent some people from buying, then you are a definite candidate. Now, you don't have to be able to check that box, because I believe if you have a great course and you've been talking about it, if you have a great membership and you've been talking about it, you can do this and it will work. So you can think that through. Now, from there, I want to turn to, okay, so how do you execute the non-launch launch? And the thing that I have discovered, and this is one of the things that I really learned last year in 2019, because I always thought for a long time, and it seems sensible, right? Having a longer open cart, that's more days for people to buy, so more people will buy. That is incorrect. Generally, what I've found is you're going to have, as long as it's not a crazy short period where people might just miss it, shortening up the time period that you're actually going to have your cart open will help. So by the end, what I was doing was I would do a 4-day cart open. So I would open the cart on a Monday and I would close the cart on a Thursday. So that was it. They had 4 days to buy. And there was one exception. I had wait lists, and sometimes I would do a wait list pre-sale, and it might be sometimes I did it like the Friday through the Sunday before, or the Friday through the Saturday, but I would just give them a chance to come in early. Again, you don't need to do a wait list. You can if you want to, especially if you already kind of have some pent-up demand for this. It's not as big of a deal, but that's how this whole thing started, was people were on the wait list. So I was like, hey, let's talk to the people who are on the wait list. And if you're going to do that, come up with some extra special bonus for people on the wait list. So again, give them a reason to act. So the central theme here for you to understand is, with a non-launch launch, and again, this is why people say, people act like I am against launching. And in some ways I am, right? I am against launching and putting all your eggs in one basket and putting all this pressure on yourself for a traditional launch. And, I don't want to say risking your whole business, but, focusing all your attention on a launch and ignoring stuff the rest of the time, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs are doing. I'm against that, but, I do launches, or I did launches, I should say. And I mean, I guess I still do, but for the template library, I don't anymore. But I did last year. They just were email only non-launch launches. And I would use the same kinds of things that you would use in a traditional launch. You would have a first day bonus where people who sign up on day one will get something extra. And again, I had phased that out at some point, but at the beginning I would use that. And you will have kind of urgency built into different times. And you might have, some different things that you build into the process so you can kind of really build urgency and scarcity and all of those things. But you're just doing it through email and social media. And so what you're going to do is you're going to send a series of emails. And the way that I generally did it, my view, I tend to always send 2 emails the day the card opens, because normally there's a bonus that expires that night. So you send the first email kind of announcing things in the morning. And then in the the evening, you send kind of a, hey, time's running out on this bonus email. And the first email that you send in a non-launch launch, just like any other promo sequence, is really important. And especially in a non-launch launch, because if you think about it, they have not gone through a webinar or a video series where you talk about your product at all. So you have to do a value load. You have to tell them all the value they're going to get. And so that's going to be an email that's long. It's going to be, like anything else, you should try to make it fun, maybe a story-based type of email like I suggest generally. But then you get to the nuts and bolts and you talk about the benefits, but you also have to tell people the feature. So like in my case, I had to tell them, you get, by the end, it was, I think, 20 or 21 templates when you sign up for the template library. And then you have to tell them, and you also get access to this Facebook group where, you have access to me to ask questions if you're not sure about, how to customize or what needs to be done. And if I add templates in the future to my shop, you get those included as well. So this is, you buy it now and you never have to buy another legal template from me again. So I have to give them all of those things so they understand what the offer is, and then you direct them to a sales page. So that's your first email, right? You have to announce the card is open, et cetera. And before you open the cart, though, you should be teasing them. You should be getting people to know that it's coming. You should be talking about it on social. If you have a podcast or content, you should be talking about it in that, in your podcast potentially, or at least doing kind of podcast content that is really warming people up to it. And then you should be, maybe dropping hints in your emails that are coming out in the weeks before, letting people know, hey, be on the lookout for some emails now so that they're kind of ready for it, because you want to be seeding generally, but in the lead up to any launch, even an email only non-launch launch, you want to make sure that people are primed and ready before you actually open the cart. So that's kind of the pre-launch work is the same as any other launch, really. And then the launch is that. And so people ask me, who are you sending this to? Well, to me, I send it to my whole list. Now, if you had a huge list, if you had, 100,000 people on your list, maybe you're going to segment and not send it to everybody. But me, I would send it to my entire list. But as is a good practice that I learned from my friend Tarzan, when you're doing any kind of promo, and you don't have to include it in every single promo email, but generally it's a good idea to include a link in your promo emails in a PPS line that says, hey, if you don't want to receive any more of these promo emails as part of this promotion, click this link and I won't send you anything. And depending on how your system works, it works a different way. I think in my system, it puts a tag on them so that I would exclude anyone with that tag. But it's just a very simple process, so they're not going to get the promo emails. But other than that, I sent these emails to my entire promo list. Everybody who was on my general segment of email would get these. So the first day, they tend to get those 2. Then over the next 2 days, I would send 1 email to everybody. And one of the things that I like to do is, especially if you're using a system where you're able to track this, and in Kartra, I'm able to track all of this, so it's great. I could see who had actually visited the sales page. Now, you should be able to do it with your email service provider based upon anyone who's clicked at least on a link in those emails. But so I would send an extra email either on Tuesday or Wednesday, probably on Wednesday, to the people who had, shown some interest. And I would just say, hey, I see that you visited the sales page. Do you have any questions? If so, I'm around. I did some crazy things in some of these launches. I would give people my cell phone number and say, hey, send me a text if you have any questions, or if you need to jump on a call to ask some questions, we can set that up. So I would do those things. And sometimes I would do that to my whole list. And sometimes I would just do that to the people who'd shown interest. Either way, those kinds of things are worth doing when you're kind of, especially when you're early on, because when you have a phone call with people, most of them will convert. I can tell you that even text message conversations got me conversions. Better than that, I literally had someone respond to my email where I said, here's my cell phone number. If you have any questions, I'm happy to jump on the phone and chat with you. Respond, well, I was on the fence, but if you're willing to jump on the phone with people, I'm sold, I'm in. And then the person bought. So those kinds of, really kind of tactical things of playing up availability for your warm audience can be huge. So that's what you're doing in kind of the second and third day. And then on the last day, you're going to send 3 emails. You're going to some people send 4. You could do 4 if you wanted to, but you're going to send 1 in the morning. You're going to send 1 early afternoon, and then you're going to send 1 towards the end when you're getting close to cart close. Now, you could also add, if you want, a 1-hour warning. That would be the 4th one if I were going to add one. But again, those are playing up, urgency, saying the cart is closing. Don't miss this. The standard type of thing you would do in a standard launch. But so that's it. And then you close the cart. And here's what I want to tell you. And here's what I want to suggest to you. If you have a warm audience that you have been cultivating, who are the perfect people for your offer, what's the worst that could happen if you tried this non-launch launch? And I say that because the worst that could happen is nobody buys. But because you haven't spent any money on ads, you're not out anything. And so that's why I like this method. And I should mention social media. You should be talking about this in social media just like you would any other launch. Because anyone who follows you on social is your warm audience. So hopefully they're going to do it. And, some people need to see it. They'll see an email and then they'll see it on social, et cetera. So do that. And if you wanted to do Facebook ads just to your warm audience, like just your email list, you could do that because that's really cheap, but you don't even really need to. And that's the beauty of the non-launch launch is what you're doing is you're trying something out. It's low impact, it's low risk, but it's high reward potentially. So I did 3 or 4 of them. I can't remember if I did 3 or 4 last year, and each one of them generated $50,000 or more. And just think about that. Just a series of emails that I sent to my list, $50,000. That is a pretty good result. Now, again, if you have a smaller list or a cheaper, less expensive product, you're probably not going to get $50,000. But at the same time, what if you get $20,000 and you spent nothing on it? Isn't it worth trying? I mean, one way to think about this is that, even if you're doing traditional launches, say twice a year, maybe every once in a while, maybe you do kind of a non-launch launch in the other quarters. Just a chance for your existing list to say, hey, if you missed it 3 months ago, you can buy right now. Or otherwise you can wait for 3 months and I'm going to do another full promo and you can see that. But it gives you a chance to try, first of all, to try out messaging, but also really to just make sales, get revenue in without costs. And that's the kind of thing I love. And if you get this to work, if you find the messaging, if you nail it and really dial it in, what it does is then it means you're able to spend all that money that you would have been spending on ads during a launch on list building ads, which that is the fuel to truly having a successful business in the long run, is spending money constantly building your list. Just so you have a sense, everybody here has a sense, I spend $3,000 a month or more on list building ads every single month, month in, month out. As I'm recording this, that's what I'm out. I'm probably going to be increasing shortly because I'm going to be spinning up a couple of new funnels. And so I'm just telling you, if you can do that, if you can do those kinds of things and finance it with these non-launch launches, then you really kind of get this snowball rolling because you're adding people to your list. It's getting bigger, and then you get to market to them, not when they're brand new to you, but when they already know, like, and trust you. So that is my non-launch launch strategy in a nutshell. And again, I encourage you to think about at least whether this will work for you. If you have a warm audience that you have been cultivating and a kind of no-brainer offer, in my view, the non-launch launch is something that you should try. So I would encourage you to give it a try and find out if it'll work for you. Now, if you want to learn more about writing great promo emails and how to kind of put together a great promo sequence generally, I would love for you to join me for my workshop this month. It's happening this Friday at 12 noon Eastern time. But yes, you'll get a replay if you sign up. Everybody's going to get a replay because, again, this is not a sales pitch. It's in the workshop, it is pure value. So I would love for you to join me. And when you join, you're also going to get a bunch of swipe files of what I have done, of the email sequences I have sent out, so that you can see how I've done it, including for a full webinar launch, but also for this kind of email only launch. So that's what you'll get when you join. I'd love for you to join me. You can find out more by heading to bobbyklink.com/February 2020 workshop. Again, bobbyklink.com/February 2020 workshop. And I'd love for you to join me. But regardless, think about doing a non-launch launch in your business. But whatever you do, I hope you, kind of enjoy and keep building the business of your dreams. That's it for this episode of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. Until next time, keep building the badass business of your dreams. That's it for this episode of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. Make sure to tune in next time. And in the meantime, go out and build the badass business of your dreams.